everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to bring you guys my end of October reading wrap up. So I have 16 books to talk about in today's video. As usual, if you want to hear about all the books that I read in the first half of the month, I will have that mid-month wrap up linked up in the cards above. So I think total in October I read 36 books, which is pretty great in my book. And I know I'm gonna get a crazy amount of reading done in November because we have the fan fiction readathon, we have the 30 in 30 manga challenge, and I have a TBR of all kinds of other books. So yes, that'll definitely be a busy reading month for me. But I am definitely really excited about all the books that I read in October. I really had some amazing reads this past month, and I have some awesome books to talk about in today's video. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get on into it. I'm gonna take off my glasses. This is a get ready with me style wrap up. So I will be doing my makeup. Today I am planning on using the Frozen II Anna palette by Colourpop. This is the color story that we're looking at. Very beautiful fall autumn colors, like the perfect palette to use during this time of year for sure. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start in with my foundation, and we are gonna talk about Death Note Black Edition Volume 2. So this is a bind up of volumes 3 and 4 of the manga series. There are 12 volumes total of this series. I'm sure most of you have heard of this series. A lot of you have probably read it. It is a very popular manga series, and for a very good reason. But just to tell you a very basic synopsis, we have our main character Light Yagami. He comes across this death note, and this is a notebook that a Shinigami, or a god of death, owns. And so basically, if you write someone's name in the death note and you have a very clear picture in your mind as to who that person is, they will die. These volumes, specifically volume 3, I found myself getting a bit frustrated with, maybe like a bit bored. Like the pacing felt slower, and I feel like there was a lot of info dumping happening. Like the direction the plot went in was interesting, but I just found there to be like a lot of text to read on every page. These conversations would go on forever. Like each scene felt like it was going on forever, and it just didn't feel as dynamic and as interesting as volumes 1 and 2 did. Now volume 4 for me did pick up, and it did get more interesting. I liked the direction that plot went in, but because of my experience with volume 3, I did end up giving this 4 stars. Am I going to continue on with the series? Most likely, but I think it's gonna take me a while before I feel the need to continue on. Next up we have Riding the Headless Horseman by Molly Likovich. So this is starting my era of reading Halloween erotic novellas in the last half of October, and honestly I'm still so here for that vibe. I still have a few more novellas downloaded off of like Kindle Unlimited that I want to get to in the next few days, so we'll see if that happens. But this one, I think it's pretty clear what this is about. It's a romance with the Headless Horseman, and we have our main character Arletta. She is a witch, but she thinks that the legend of death, aka the Headless Horseman, is just bullshit. But on Halloween night, lo and behold, she comes across him, and he takes her captive, just takes her back to his realm. This was just a fun time, really sexy. There was even some kinks going on, some BDSM things happening, and I really liked the ending of this one. There was just like a really interesting, I guess you could say, sort of redemption arc for the Headless Horseman dude. And yeah, it's just a fun time. I definitely would recommend it if you are still looking for a Halloween themed erotic novella to just have a good time with, you know. Next up we have Hollow Heathens by Nicole Fiorina. I was turned on to this book by Tori from Novel Life. She recommended this in her fall Romance Rex video, and what I will say is that while I didn't give this 5 stars, I gave it 4 stars. The vibes are there. Like, this has the perfect witchy paranormal romance vibes. Like, it takes place in this eerie and creepy small town called Weeping Hollow, and this is sort of, I guess you would call this a fantasy novel as well, because this town is its own little world away from society. Yes, the town is technically in Maine, but like only certain people can access it. It's like this magical little town. And we have our two main characters, Fallon and Julian. And so Fallon ends up moving to this town to take care of her grandfather. And Julian is one of these, I think it's 4 guys that are known as the Hollow Heathens. And in this town, basically there are 2 or 3 covens, and the Hollow Heathens are a part of one witch coven, and then there is another coven that's trying to recruit Fallon to be on their side. And so basically these Hollow Heathens have a curse on them that if they show their face to anyone, it could kill them. It'll show that person their worst nightmares. And so because of that, these Hollow Heathens have to wear masks. And so it's just a really angsty romance between Julian and Fallon. I don't know, there were times where I was really invested and there were times where I was getting really bored, but I am glad that I had the audiobook. The audiobook was very well done, and it did come out pretty recently. But the audiobook is like 19 hours. Like, this book is long, very long-winded for sure. And like I said though, the vibes are perfect. So if you're in the mood for something like this and you don't mind that it's over 500 pages, it did give me slight vibes of books like Gothicana by Runix. So if you loved that book, you might enjoy this one as well, though I definitely enjoyed Gothicana more than this. And what did frustrate me is that as long as this book is, the ending is quite abrupt. Basically, we don't get to see Julian and Fallon's happily ever after. And I know this is a series that's going to continue on. Book 2 is being written as we speak. But I just found it weird that like the very end of this book, an event happens that gives Julian and Fallon an opportunity for an HEA, but we don't get to see that HEA. There's no epilogue. Like, I just found that so weird for how long this book is. So this book definitely wasn't perfect, but it did give me those witchy fall vibes. By the way, quick shout out to the Coty Airspun Loose Face Powder. This is what it looks like. This is a very inexpensive face powder that will last you 4 years. I just got a new container of this. This powder is just incredible. I haven't used it in a long time, but like it really just blurs out everything. I like to use it mainly under my eyes to like set my under eye concealer. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the eyeshadow. Next up, we have Blood Moon by Jillian Graves. This is a witchy paranormal romance novella that I had so much fun with. I think I ended up giving this 5 stars actually. This was a really fun time. So we have our main characters Vlad and Hazel. Hazel is a witch. First of all, we love Hazel in this house because she's tall. I think she's like over 6 feet tall. She has like hot pink hair and she's curvy. And then we have Vlad, who is just a hot vampire with a filthy mouth. But this is like a business rivals to lovers story. It starts off with a one-night stand where we have Hazel. She's been running this bar for a while, but there is this new bar across the street that is doing some shady things to get customers away from her bar and into theirs. And so she's just very frustrated, and so she goes to her friend's party one night where she meets Vlad, our hot vampire, and they have a steamy time together. But right after, pretty much, she finds out that he indeed runs the rival club across the street from hers. So from then on, she's like, I hate your guts. What the hell are you doing? Why are these shady things happening? And meanwhile, Vlad is like, I never approved of those things. I don't know what's happening. Let me figure this out. And so then things go on from there. And one thing I really liked about this is that Vlad never saw them as rivals. He was like, you know, you have your business, I have mine. I respect you, I want to be with you, you know, whereas Hazel is the one who is definitely reluctant to be with him. It kind of has a little bit of a grumpy heroine charming, smart-ass hero vibe to it. And yeah, the steamy scenes in this were amazing, and this was like the perfect length for their story. It was like a little over 100 pages. Next up, we have Soul Eater by Lily Mayne. So this is an fantasy monster romance that I was turned on to by Jen from the Book Refuge. We have Daniel, our main character. This does take place in the United States, but 20 years before the main part of the story starts, there was this portal that opened. And it seems there were portals that opened all over the world, and these scary ass monsters found their way into our world, and that essentially caused the apocalypse, basically. We don't really know what's going on in other countries of the world, but in the States, there's not many cities left. Pretty much everyone lives around like the coastline, because those areas seem to be safest from the monsters, and so the middle of the country is known as the wastes. So we have Daniel, our hero. I think he's about 23 years old, and he basically had no choice but to enlist in the military after his mother passed away. It was either, you know, enlist or like basically starve to death, or maybe get killed by a monster. But this is definitely not the life he wants to be living. And so at the beginning of the novel, they are going on a mission. And so then, lo and behold, they come upon Wynn, our other hero, who's pictured here on the cover. And things do not go well for their mission, and Daniel ends up being one of the only people left alive. And so the military does end up taking Wynn into their custody, and they lock him up in a cell, and there's some other monsters that are locked up in this military compound as well. And so then Daniel is sent in to interrogate Wynn, try to get answers out of him. Why does he kill these people? What, like, does he have a mission? Is he even able to control his urges? Like, what exactly is going on? And so things go on from there. And I can tell you right now, this is easily one of the most unique romances I've ever read. I don't think I've ever read anything quite like this, and I don't think I ever will. Even other romances in this series, you know, just because, like, Wynn in particular, he's such a unique character. I loved the grumpy sunshine vibe, and I like that they don't have an immediate attraction to each other. It's through this like kind of forced proximity situation that they start to have feelings for each other. We don't really get Wynn's POV, but I wasn't bothered by that because Wynn makes his feelings known quite clearly to Daniel. It's very steamy, by the way. Like, there's a lot of sex scenes in this, and they were all very well done. I will say that it took me a hot minute to fully figure out what's going on with Wynn's anatomy. I'll just say that. But like, it's a monster romance, so that kind of comes with the territory. But I don't know, I loved this. There were some beautiful and swoony moments, also some really funny moments, especially when Eden came into the picture. Eden is a friend of Wynn's, and he is this big purple monster, and his romance is going to be the next book in the series, I think, so I'm very excited to read that one. We have another Halloween feeling novella. This is Offerings by Ashley Mack. I think I first heard about this from Jen from the Book Refuge once again. She is who I get a lot of my recommendations from at this point. But this is an interesting dark academia romance. We have our main characters, Elise and Colin. This is also a best friend's brother romance, and so they both have been pining after each other for years, but they both feel that the other wouldn't reciprocate those feelings, so they've kept their feelings to themselves. And so they end up going to the same college together, and Colin is a part of this secret society, and Elise wants to be part of another secret society. on campus. And so one night she ends up going to his dorm room to ask if he would basically like sponsor her because he's already a part of a secret society. And so through that, they end up confessing their feelings for one another. And then things get kind of crazy from there, because in the society that Colin is a part of, there's this thing called the Hunt that is done every year, where basically someone's name is picked out of a hat of somebody who is in the society. And if your name is picked, Colin's name does get picked, of course, you are going to be hunted for an entire night by the rest of the secret society. And so if you can, you know, survive that night without getting caught, that's basically a badge of honor in that society. And so right as they're confessing their feelings for each other, the night starts. And so these people are now after Colin, and so Elise gets roped into that whole situation. And this is just a really fun time, very steamy, you know, a dash of suspense thrown in. I do want to mention that there is a content warning for past sexual assault, and then that same person who assaulted Elise in the past, he's now trying to assault her again. So we've got past and present assault. Once again, we've got a hero with a filthy mouth, and I love how protective he is of Elise and how devoted he is to her. Like, this was just really great. I think I ended up giving this like 4 or 4.5 stars. Definitely highly recommend this one. Next up, let's see, we have Wait For It by Mariana Zapata. So I've pretty much made it a goal at this point that I'll read at least one Mariana Zapata book every year. And Wait For It in particular is probably the Mariana Zapata book that has been on my TBR the longest, and I've just heard a lot of people rave about this one. This is a neighbor's romance, and we have Diana, our heroine, who is now taking care of her 2 young nephews whose names are Josh and Louie. Basically, their father, who is Diana's brother, passed away a couple of years ago, and so now she's taking care of them. And so they move into this new neighborhood in Austin, Texas, I believe. And so then she has a run-in with her neighbor whose name is Dallas, and he actually ends up being the coach for Josh's baseball team. And so through that, they slowly, very slowly become friends. And of course, being Mariana Zapata, like, this is very, very slow burn. And so over time, they become friends, and then something more. And the thing that I've realized about Mariana Zapata is that she's the queen of having people fall in love without them having ever even kissed each other. I don't know, her characters just have this very strong emotional connection. And then there's always that amazing scene where they pretty much confess their love for each other and have their first kiss. And it's like, oh my God, like, it's just such an amazing moment. Like, I've said this once and I'll say it again, nobody writes romance quite like Mariana Zapata. And I don't know how her slow burn romances work so well for me, but they truly do. Now, what I will say is that this is not my absolute favorite romance by her. I would say From Luke Off with Love and The Wall of Winnipeg and Me are my 2 top favorites by her. But like I said, this was still a very strong romance, and I loved this blended family thing that we've got going on, because like I said, she's taking care of her nephews now, and the way that Dallas embraces her nephews is just adorable. And the ending of this is gonna make you cry. It's gonna make you tear up. It's gonna make you cry, and it's just an absolutely wonderful ending. So I definitely recommend this one, but like I said, it's not like my top favorite by Mariana Zapata. All right, so next up is straight up one of my top favorite books I read this month. Also, one of my new all-time favorite historical romances. So that is The Vampire Who Loved Me by Teresa Medeiros. I loved this book so much that I absolutely had to get myself a physical copy. And luckily the version that they sell on Amazon still has like a beautiful step back and everything. That's what it looks like. And I love like how the text is raised here. Like this is just such a perfect cover for this story. So here's the thing about this book though. I can't tell you the name of the hero because that spoils a plot point and a plot twist in the first book of this duet. So this is book 2 in the Cabot duet. The first book is After Midnight. I absolutely loved that book when I read it last year. That one is about Adrian, who is a Viscount who may or may not be a vampire, and then Caroline, who is a spinster, and she has 2 sisters, one younger and one older, I believe. And her older sister, I think, is already married at this point. But in the beginning of After Midnight, Adrian is actually courting Portia, who is Caroline's younger sister. So we have kind of a Viscount Who Loved Me vibe going on in After Midnight, plus a hero who may or may not be a vampire. And like that romance is incredible. Like definitely read that book first before going into this, because like I said, there is a plot twist in that book that leads you into this book basically. So that's why I can't really tell you too much of what's going on plot wise. All right, so now that that is all done, I'm gonna move on to bronzer, blush, highlight, all that good stuff. But here's the thing, like I literally just have a long checklist of all of the things that I adore about this book. Like this for me is like the perfect vampire, paranormal, historical romance. Like the vibes are perfect, and something about Teresa Medeiros's writing style just sucks me in from the first sentence. And I did find that to be the case with After Midnight, but I almost love this book even more than book 1, which is just absolutely insane because I loved book 1. Adrian is the hero from book 1. He is a book boyfriend of mine. Like I love him so much, and it was so great to see him and Caroline, the heroine from book 1, featured so much in this installment. But let's just get into this checklist. I'm just gonna read off all the things. This also has gothic vibes to it, which I love because there's like some creepy mansions throughout and things like that. We have a vampire hero who's a wastrel and feels unworthy of the heroine but gets an amazing redemption arc. We love that. A kick-ass vampire huntress heroine. So this is Portia's story. Portia is the younger sister of Caroline, the heroine from book 1. Next up we have this romance is the perfect balance of sweet, angsty, and sexy. And when I tell you this brings the angst, I mean, I am not exaggerating at all. Like, I think Teresa Medeiros does a fantastic job of writing angst. It's like just the right amount of angst. And this is also a very sexy book, and so is book 1, but not in that there's just like a ton of sex scenes. It's just like the tension between the characters is so well written and so good. I put a sweeping and epic feeling second chance romance that spans several years. Oh my god, I have to talk about the villain of this book, you guys. She is amazing. She is basically a past mistress of the hero, and the two of them, being that they were past lovers, they give me vibes of Angel and Darla from the Buffy Angel universe. If you've watched those shows, this villain totally reminds me of Darla. She also reminds me a little bit of Drusilla from the same, you know, show, the same universe, and I just love that so much. We have plenty of Adrian and Caroline content. Like I said, it's really great to see them as parents now. Like, we love Daddy Adrian, okay? Dashes of humor thrown in that literally made me laugh out loud. And there's scenes where the hero has to act like a villain or a monster in order to fit in or appease his fellow vampires. Like there's a scene where they kind of have to go undercover, and Portia has to act like a newly turned vampire, and like, ah, man, I love scenes like that. I am truly not exaggerating when I tell you this is now one of my all-time favorite historical romances. Like, I want to reread this duet already. I'm just absolutely obsessed. So next up we have some more crazy fun Halloween feeling novellas. Next up is As If I Wouldn't Fall by Jessica Kane. This is Miss Kane's most recent release, and I am very happy to say that I gave this 5 stars and that I really enjoyed this. One of the things that I really loved is that this is a high school / new adult romance, and for me personally, I feel like those are Jessica Kane's best works. Like, I feel like she writes teenagers very well and very authentically. And so we got a crazy ass, possessive, and protective hero, as is the case with Miss Kane. We know she's gonna bring that to the table. But we have Flint and Ayla. They, like I said, they are in high school, and Flint has just been in love and obsessed with Ayla probably like their whole lives. But he just kind of silently follows her and protects her. He doesn't feel that he's like worthy of actually speaking to her. But one day Ayla damages her car, and so she goes to Flint for help. And so he finally confesses his feelings towards her, and things go on from there. Y'all, this was just a good time. Like, I'm really glad that I read this, and I feel like this novella had the feeling and the vibe of past Jessica Kane novellas that I have loved in the past. I feel like for the most part, her most recent works are like too crazy even for me, but I feel like this novella brought back what I love about Jessica Kane, and so that was really great to see. But yeah, this hero is literally insane. He like goes to prison at one point because of something he does for the heroine. He also gets a certain part of his body tattooed with her name on it. What is happening? I literally was just like dying laughing reading that part. But yeah, this was just a good time, and if you're just looking to be entertained, like, Jessica Kane's gonna give you that, you know? So I'm actually almost done with my makeup, so I'm just gonna add some lipstick. This is the Millani Bold Matte lipstick in the shade number 12, I Am Radiant. This is just a perfect kind of terracotta color, perfect for fall. All right, I am done with my makeup. I'm gonna go fix my hair in a minute because I need to go film another video today. But I'm very happy with how this look came out. It's very fall. I'm here for the vibe. So I do have a few more books to talk about. Next up we have Hollow's Grove. I can't remember who the author is, but they write erotic romance novellas that center around a different holiday. I know they have one that's pretty popular. I think it's called Four Leaf, and that one is like a St. Patrick's Day novella. This one is Halloween themed. And we have Dorian and Evelyn. So they have grown up together. This is another best friend's brother romance, but Evelyn and Dorian's relationship, this is definitely kind of a hate to love situation, because like their whole lives, all Dorian has ever done is just like played pranks on her and like scared the shit out of her. He just loves to make her scream in more ways than one, as we'll see later on in the novella. But yeah, so they don't have a great relationship. But Evelyn's best friend and Dorian's sister, she's putting on this murder mystery party for work, and so she asks the both of them to help her out with that. And so Evelyn is going to be a maid and Dorian is going to be a butler. And so over the course of this party, they reveal their true feelings for each other. Well, it's really like Dorian revealing his true feelings for Evelyn, because Evelyn always thought that like he hated her guts because of the way that he treated her, but in reality he's been pining for her this whole time. And so this is just really sexy. Like, oh boy, all the fire emojis. All I'm gonna say is that we love a hero who has been in love with a heroine forever, and he calls her Sunshine, and he is what is known as a pleasure dom, and that's something that I had never heard of before, but this novella definitely explains what that is, and if you want to know, you can definitely look it up on like Urban Dictionary. But yeah, this was a fun time. Definitely recommend it. I think I gave it like 4 stars. We have Squeak by Vera Valentine. This was a novella that I was turned on to by Tiffany from Tiff Talks Pages, and wow. This novella really took me by surprise because I thought that this was just gonna be a really weird erotica novella. Basically, it's a poly romance. So we have Sebastian and Keen, our 2 heroes. They are balloon animal shifters. You heard that correctly. They can shift between being balloon animals and humans. And so they both work at this zoo. Poppy, our heroine, is an artist, and she likes to draw people that are just walking around the zoo. She kind of likes to people watch. And so Sebastian, the more charming of the 2 heroes, he kind of befriends her, but Keen gets very jealous. So basically, these 2 have a very dark and tragic backstory where they were created by this evil woman. Was her name Xena or something? She gave me vibes of Amarantha from the ACOTAR series, but they were her slaves in every way, including sexually, and she controlled like when they shifted from humans to balloon animals, but they were able to escape her. And I know this is crazy, right? Like, as I'm telling the plot, I'm just like, what am I even talking about? But this is a very short novella. It's like 50 pages, and over the course of the novella, you see the 3 of them fall in love with each other, and this is Omegaverse, so I did want to throw that out there. I haven't read very much Omegaverse content, so I mean, yeah, like there's just kind of weird things going on in this world and in this story, I guess. But I would have given this 5 stars. Like, I truly was loving this, and I didn't expect to. But the ending was so rushed. Like, I wanted this novella to be, I think it should have been maybe about 20 to 25 pages longer, just so that the ending would have been more fleshed out. I did end up giving this 4 stars, but overall, I mean, if you're looking for something weird but like surprisingly good quality, I would say read this. Like, I really enjoyed it, and there is gonna be a squeakquel that's called Squeal, that involves, I think, a circus clown. So I'll definitely read that when it comes out. That's all I gotta say. I did read Something Is Killing the Children Volume 2. I gave this 4 stars. This is a YA horror comic where there are these monsters that in fact are killing the children in this small town, and it centers around this monster hunter who is on the cover. She's a blonde woman, and so she's trying to get rid of these monsters, but only kids can see them, so that makes things difficult. And yeah, this is just like a slasher horror story, but it's very well done. I like the art style. I'll probably continue on with the series, but at the same time, it's not like my new obsession. Next up, we have That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf by Kimberly Lemming. Oh my god, I'm so glad that I read this. I read That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon a few months back. I absolutely loved that novella. These are literally the perfect fantasy rom-coms. Like, they're just perfect and amazing, and there's great diversity in here. I love that in both of these novellas, we are centering around Black women. Like, you never read fantasy stories, or hardly ever read fantasy stories where that is the case. And I love that they have these amazing romances with different creatures. The first one is obviously about a demon, and then this one is about Felix, who is a werewolf. And so at the beginning of this novella, we have our main character Bree, and she's being harassed by this man who essentially just wants her for her money. And so he gives her a drink that has a love potion in it, but she doesn't realize that. And so she just goes to throw the drink back in his face. He ducks down, and so the love potion hits Felix who is a werewolf, who is a mutual friend of theirs, actually. And so he instantly imprints on her and sees her to be his mate. And so that's all well and good and everything, but Bree doesn't believe that she's truly his mate because she thinks that he's just under this love potion. And he's like, no, I'm telling you, this is not just a love potion. Like, you are everything to me. And oh my goodness, the smut in this, guys, next level, honestly. This might even be sexier than the first novella. This was just wonderful. I love how well Kimberly Lemming balances the fantasy world and magic system, and like there's mystery plots in both novellas, and she balances that really well with these just amazing paranormal romances. Like, they're just very well done. Also, both novellas are hilarious. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I was just like dying laughing reading both of these. And oh my god, there is a new character introduced in this novella who is a talking sword, and that character is just a straight up menace. Oh my god, so hilarious. Yeah, like, I can't rave enough about this series. I do want to briefly talk about my reread of Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. So just last night, we had our live show discussion about this book for SJM along, so I will link that down in the description below. I thought that that was a really great discussion. The thing with this book is, so this is my second time reading this series, so my first time rereading this series, and when I read this book for the first time, I was kind of underwhelmed. I gave it 4 stars at the time, mainly because I felt that the pacing was very slow. I didn't really have any issues with the story, but I just felt like the pacing, especially in the first like 200 pages or so, was very slow. This time around, I've been listening to the audiobooks while following along with the physical copies. And I think that made all the difference, because those audiobooks have really been bringing these stories to life. And so with this audiobook in particular, like, I was immediately obsessed with this story upon reread. This reading experience was just completely different for me. I thought the pacing was so much better. Irene and Kale and Nesrin and Sartok, like, they have my heart. I love this story so much, and it makes me so sad that this book isn't as popular as I feel it should be. I feel like Kale's journey in particular is just very well done. I know I can't speak to the disability representation, but I personally think that his journey is beautiful and well done. And the romances in this are amazing, and there's some amazing revelations in this book as well. Like, it baffles me that there are people who just don't read this book and they go straight into Kingdom of Ash, and I'm like, how can you do that when there's literally like so much important information in this book? I have 2 more books to talk about. We have Hayseed by Vera Valentine. This is the same author that wrote Squeak. So this is a scarecrow monster romance novella. And I do want to throw out there is domestic violence depicted in this. At the beginning of this novella, we have Maisie, our heroine. She is in a relationship, an abusive relationship with her boyfriend. There is a scene where he just straight up slaps her. So like, just be aware of that. Like, things get real in this. But then we have Corbin, our hero, who is a scarecrow who on, I guess, Halloween night, his magic allows him to become human for a night. And so he meets Maisie and they hit it off right away. And so Maisie tells Corbin about her abusive now ex-boyfriend. And so let's just say that steamy things happen in front of the now ex. And I've never read anything quite like it, but it was a good time because that piece of shit deserved everything that was coming to him. So it was wonderful. This is like a 40-page novella. You'll fly through it. We love a hero who just like worships the ground that the heroine walks on. He calls her his radiant harvest. What a scarecrow thing to say, you know? Last but certainly not least, we have Carnal Urges by J.T. Geisinger. Now, I'm not quite finished this book yet, but I am very far along, and I do feel like I can give a pretty good review. So this is book 2 in the Queens and Monsters series by J.T. Geisinger, which is a mafia romance series. By the way, the audiobooks for this series are spectacular. Highly, highly recommend them. But basically we have Sloane and Declan. Sloane unknowingly starts a mafia war. And so Declan, who is the head of the Irish mafia, he takes her captive. So it is a captor-captive romance. And Sloane, they're both pretty iconic characters, but Sloane is so freaking funny and clever. I love the banter between these two. And it's just like a really fun time. I think I'll put my final rating, you know, here while I'm editing this video, but I think I'm gonna go with 4.5 stars. Neither of the books in this series have given me that 5-star feeling, but they are incredibly entertaining, incredibly sexy, lots of BDSM going on, really intriguing characters. Like, Declan can get it any day of the week, you know? So I definitely would recommend this series if you're looking for a new mafia romance series to try. Obviously, because it's mafia, these are dark romances. But yeah, I definitely highly recommend this one for sure. It definitely has a unique feel to it. So that is going to be it for the 16 books that I read in the second half of October. I would love it if you would leave a comment down below if you want to discuss any of the books that I talked about in this video. I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!